Hi, Courtney McCullough here from Ageless Writer Studios, and I'm here to talk about the 1000th episode of NCIS. Oh my goodness. Okay, my room's a little bit of a mess. It is what it is. This will be sort of a study area one day when I get everything. That's for another day. Okay, so honestly, I probably should have done one of these with the David McCallum / Ducky Mallard tribute episode, because Ducky was David McCallum was an actor who played Dr. Donald Mallard, aka Ducky, who was the medical examiner for NCIS for basically the whole time up until like recent seasons, because David McCallum was getting older and they wanted to take off some of his workload. But he still made appearances. He was still referenced. He was still shown. Then tragically, David McCallum passed away during the writers' strike. So they wrote in, the tribute episode to kind of tie up some loose ends, but also bring the character of Ducky closure in a way that was, I think, befitting for the esteemed doctor, though very disappointed that Gibbs wasn't really referenced or shown much. But it was nice to see, like, Abby had sent something. There was Michael Weatherly's character, Tony DiNozzo was there. It was a sweet tribute, and, like, I love Ducky. He was one of my favorite characters. I should have done a thing like this for the tribute episode, but I had a lot of things going on at that time, personal wise. The 1000th episode of NCIS. Okay, so here's why it's so exciting to me personally. I have been following NCIS since I was like 12. I am now currently 27 for reference. It was my first big girl show, meaning it was my first show that I fell in love with outside of, like, cartoons or shows that were directed for teens or toward, middle school kids. And don't get me wrong, like, I would watch episodes of Law and Order and Dateline and things like that, but it was more like bits and pieces. Maybe if I was in the room and it caught my attention, I would watch it. Or if it was like a particularly intriguing episode, or if I recognized someone. Like, I think I watched a Criminal Minds episode that had, no, it wasn't Criminal Minds, it was a Law and Order SVU episode that had Robin Williams in it. Like, I watched that. You know what I mean? Like, if I recognized someone, I wanted to see why they were on the show. Like, why were they guest stars? But NCIS was my first big girl show that I really just fell in love with. It was summer, so they were in rerun season hiatus, and my family liked NCIS, and they were watching some of the reruns, and the first episode that I watched was it was like the Super Soldier episode, where this guy had a heart defect, which was going to keep him out of the military. The Super Soldier episode, which is like where he had like a defect going on, which was going to keep him out of the military. And so he went through like this experimental sort of thing to try to get him to be okay for the military. But it messed with his head, and he started attacking people. And so NCIS is called in to figure out what was going on, what triggered him, because, PTSD. And he ended up, like, he broke Tony's nose. He messed up McGee's wrist. He and Ziva went at it, like, poof, poof, poof. Of course, Tony joked that Ziva caught feelings for him, and she's like, no, he's just a really great warrior. And, Abby had a moment of, like, she was biased for a minute because she thought, he was just crazed because he went after her beloved team, but then turns out it's not his fault, But that was my first episode that I really, it hooked me. Not gonna lie, had a little crush on Ziva, had a little crush on Abby. Who did it? So that started me, like, obsessing. Didn't have internet access like I do now at the time. So I had to rely on reruns from, like, USA Network, the CBS networks, WeTV, and just, I caught up as best as I could. Because the season that started right when the next season after I really got into it was the one where McGee, Tony, and Gibbs go and find and save Ziva after she had been so upset about the whole Michael Rivkin thing. Which, girl's entitled to her emotions. Okay, she's entitled. She don't show them often. Or she learned, she progressed. All of the characters had so much development, and that's one of the things I really loved about NCIS. Ensemble casts don't always delve into the individual characters, especially when you pair it off with being like a police procedural. And yes, Gibbs was obviously one of the main ones, and they had several with, like, when Jenny Shepard or Lauren Harley was being Jenny Shepard. There were several of those. Hello, DJ. My cat's just coming, go, it is what it is. But, like, that's just what they do. Gibbs had more backstory stuff, but they still would focus on the other characters, and develop them a little more. Like, so Gibbs, like, he went from he was a Marine sniper to a federal agent to, he's, technically retired, kind of sort of wanted by the FBI. We're not ought to talk about that. That, where does this come from? Like, he was a troublemaker, considered a troublemaker as a teen, to Marine sniper, to federal agent, to retired. Like, and you find out that, he, as stern as he is throughout the series, it all ties back to, he used to be a very holly jolly kind of dude, but he lost everything dear to him. And you find that he went after the person who took everything from him. And he found a family with his team, and he became like the team dad, and yes, he was tough on them, and yes, the head slaps were very much red flag behavior. But there wasn't anything he wouldn't do for the members of his team. Now, keep in mind, this is on screen, on the show. I'm not talking about behind the set stuff, because behind the set stuff, I haven't found a lot of it, but I know that Polly Perrette and Mark Harmon did not get along off screen. And that Michael Weatherly had some issues off screen with being appropriate. I think he grew up some. I don't know. I don't know why I said the term grow up. I don't know. I'm just saying what happened in the NCIS universe. one of my cats is apparently found the catnip. That's the only explanation. Cat's gonna cat. Then we have, if you hear the other voice, that is my grandmother. There's Tony. He starts off as this holly jolly playboy dude who a little unconventional but good cop, womanizer, and he grows into being just a stand-up guy, a good father, and depending on how the Tony Ziva spinoff goes, maybe a good partner. And he went from having little to no interaction with his father to reconciling with his father. McGee went from being shy, unsure of himself, a little nerd from the Norfolk office, to being not only a dedicated, and confident special agent, but a wonderful husband and father to 2 kids. Ziva went from being Mossad and not exactly friendly to be around to being a very open and caring woman with her ability to empathize shown, her vulnerabilities shown, and of course she's a good mother. Abby, we learned about Abby's upbringing. She comes from the South. She finds out she was adopted. She had deaf parents. I don't know what this is. I don't know sign language very good. I know a little bit, like A, B, C, D, E. That's, I think, hi. Bye. One of my friends said this was lesbian. I don't know. And she's got layers. She's the forensic scientist, but she's a goth chick. And yes, she likes to play with the voodoo dolls and stuff, but she's very into her science, and she's not just a damsel in distress sort of person. She's very capable of handling herself. I have 2 of my favorite episodes showing her taking care of herself was the one where she finds out this one dude has been playing her and has been messing with her forensics or whatever. And she's like, "Can I hit him now, Gibbs? Can I hit him now? Can I hit him now?" And Gibbs finally's like, "Yeah, sure." And then the other one is this dude tries to frame Tony for murder, and she finds out what he is, and well, she has him hog-tied, duct taped, and looks at the director and Gibbs going, "Can I work alone now, please?" That's not the only episodes where she is a badass, but it's one of the 2 of the biggest ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't even have to tell you all the ones of Ziva being a badass, though, because she just... There's so many of those. Favorite one being the very first episode where she's the liaison officer, and Debs is like, show me what you got. She takes off all these guns, and it's like, and the knife, and it's like, and he's like, rule 8, always carry a knife. You're good. And then with that singular knife, saves her and Ducky from grave robbers. And I love McGee's episode, the first few episodes where we see McGee gaining his confidence, which are revenge of the nerd sort of thing. There was Kate Todd. She was before Ziva. She used to be Secret Service. She had a tragic end. A lot of people were really upset about that, but it was Sasha Alexander's choice of wanting to leave. And expressing a thought of probably not wanting to come back. So she was good with being killed. She just wanted him to be memorable. And it was. It was something that ended up haunting the team even up to this day. But she had her depths to her. Like, you thought straight-laced by the book Secret Service agent. Well, turns out she can play fast and loose with the rules as well. And she gave as good as she got, especially in the little verbal tatas with the nose. Oh, I really hope I pronounced that right. That's the thing about when you read. You read things and you know what they're supposed to mean, but you never really hear someone say them, so you don't know how they're really pronounced. But I digress. Ducky. He had growth. He's not just the elderly medical examiner, but he's been through so much. He's been in several wars as not only a medical examiner, but as like a field doctor. He was with, I think, Doctors Without Borders for a while. He was technically tortured by the CIA, but in a subconscious, subversive way, which was the subject matter of an episode, Broken Bird, where his past with Doctors Without Borders kind of came back to haunt him because this girl recognized him and thought he was the one who had been tormenting her brother, and it wasn't his fault. He was being tortured too, technically. The CIA guy in charge, Marcin Jarek, would send these people to him to fix, but then would go behind Ducky's back, bring them back, torture them, reopen their wounds, and then send them back over and over again, to the point that Ducky was just like, Marcin Jarek was awful. And I am so glad they got him. They got him late in life because he was already an old man. But they got him. He was a mama's boy. He cared for his aging mother. He became a pseudo-grandfather for Jimmy Palmer's daughter. Jimmy Palmer being sort of a son to him. The person he passed on most of his medical examiner knowledge to. Jimmy's also the one who took over being the medical examiner. Those two have had their moments not only together but separately. I mean, we've had Palmer literally run a car into a suspect. We've had Ducky literally talk down some suspects to try to, talk them down. We've had Ducky mouth off to suspects because he's like, I'm old, whatever. One of my favorite things is some dude asked Ducky offhand, like, and whose grandfather are you? And Ducky's like, that depends, who's your grandma? Like, Ducky sass. I love that man. And Palmer, I mean, he got over a lot of fears and things that he did to now he is the medical examiner. He lost his wife on the show. He's a single dad now, raising his daughter, Victoria, who is named after Ducky's mother. Anyway, it was just like beautiful Diane's. There was Ellie Bishop, Eleanor. She came from the NSA, and I kind of miss that they took some of her quirk out as she became more accustomed to NCIS. Like her sitting in the floor and stuff, but they didn't take out all of it. She still used food to associate certain clues with things, like remembering things because of food she'd had at certain places, and it's like, wait. She went from being married to being divorced to joining the CIA. And she went from being more of a desk person to being out in the field. We got to learn about Judy Shepard, her past with Gibbs, but not just that, like some of her past as an agent, but also what was her driving force, which was her father, who was a Marine. And of course, then her downfall being her obsession with the arms dealer Laura Ennui, aka the Frog, aka Rene Benoit. I mean, it wasn't her downfall and that's what killed her, but it's what led her down the path that ended up killing her. That is to say, assuming her illness didn't kill her first. Because she was very ill. We got to learn more. There was the original director, T.C. Morrow, which we found out that he ended up having a niece. And he became like Secretary of the Navy, which they go through Secretaries of the Navy on that show. Like, I mean, at one point it was the woman that plays Diane Miller on General Hospital, which, I mean, she was fantastic. But they go through them like, then we get Vance as the director, and Vance, I mean, he starts off as like a no-nonsense, used to be agent afloat, big shot, former agent, turned director, one of the first black directors, which Jenny Shepard was the first female in the universe. I mean, I don't know what it is though. Anyway, and he had his wife, he had 2 kids, but again, started no nonsense, and then he slowly started to start trusting the team. The team started learning to trust him, and yes, he was still very big on playing politics and whatnot, but he showed that he was willing to trust his team and put his neck out on the line more than a few times. He was also shown to have made some questionable friends, like Ziva David, who was the director of Mossad at the time. I really should not be smiling when I talk about Mossad now because of the things going on with Palestine. This is fiction. In this fictional world. Because there are atrocities going on right now with real world Palestine at the hands of Israel. And we cannot forget about that. Again, this is in the fictional bubble of NCIS. But again, questionable allies. It ended up costing him his wife. Vance, which in this episode, I'll get to that. Then we have Torres, who came in. Torres went from a constantly undercover guy who had always been a lone wolf to he's good with working with a team. He trusts his team. He's got some baggage. He's an immigrant. Okay, he comes from I want to say it was Colombia. That his mother and his sister are from. He was a victim of child abuse. And he and his sister both managed to get justice for their mother. And I think she suffered because of this. There was Jackie Sloan, who was, for a while, the team's psychologist. She ended up going back to Afghanistan. She was Army. You find out that she was sexually assaulted and had a child because of that she gave up for adoption. And then she ended up confronting her abuser. She tore into him, and he had to listen. Can't remember if she ever officially got justice or not, but she deserved better. And there was another woman, but she wasn't on long. She was on there for like a season. And she was played by a girl who used to be on Blue Bloods, and I know I've seen her face, but I cannot think of her name. Then we got Katrina Law and Gary Cole, who play Parker and Jessica Knight. And to them, okay, Parker went from being FBI and he was also, as a kid, apparently a huge troublemaker. He went from being a troublemaker to being FBI to now NCIS. He's dealing with an aging father who likes to push his buttons. He's also got a couple of ex-wives. And we got Jessica Knight, whose dad, her parents are divorced. She's half Chinese. Her mom, or not her mom, her dad is an NCIS agent abroad. She has issues with her little sister, who doesn't, but and she ends up dating Jimmy, and she goes from being the head of her React team to now working as part of a team, and she goes from having like this big 5-year plan to now taking it day by day and enjoying her life more. Then we also have Diana Resinover, who is gay, and I want to see her have a gay storyline so bad. But I digress. She is the new forensic scientist. She came off the coattails of Ducky because she was helping Ducky with his book. And now she works at NCIS, and we found out so much about her. Like, her mom's a widow. Her dad was in the military, and he passed away. She's reconnecting with her family some, and she's got her quirk. She's not quite like Abby with the goth and the music, but she's into her true crime podcast. She sees the energy in the air sometimes, and she's just like, nope. Sometimes the others get into what I've heard the internet term as caucasity, or that's gonna get you killed. And like, I've seen her kind of do those looks of not touching that. But power to her. But that's not all of NCIS. That is not even scratching the surface. I'm just barely scratching the surface of these characters. It also goes in depth with some of the recurring characters. Like, learning about McGee's wife, Delilah, before she was even his wife. Learning a little bit about Bishop's husband before they divorced. We get to learn about a lot of Gibbs' ex-wives. There's like 3 or 4 of them. We get to learn about some of his girlfriends. We get to learn about Tony's girlfriends and stuff that he's dealt with. Ziva's. Fornell. I love Fornell. He was an FBI agent that came on all the time. He was always like, why are we calling? He and Gibbs share an ex-wife. And he's just, they hate each other, but they love each other. They're each other's best friends, but they also hate being in the same room. Very odd couple, I guess. I love them. They're an old married couple without ever having been married. And I think it's because they married the same woman at one point. But I digress. It was just, mwah. I got to learn about Gibbs' mentor, Mike Franks. He was in several episodes. Muse Watson as Franks was so funny. I love this show. I love it. But tonight's episode was the 1000th episode. And they managed to tie it into episode 1 of season 1. Not really the pilot, because the pilot was a backdoor pilot thing with Jag. Which was the show before NCIS. But I digress. They tied it back to season 1. We start off sad enough with Vance talking to his dead wife's grave. Trying to talk to her. It's her birthday. He's reconnecting with her. His son's back in town, and they don't really see eye to eye because Jared still sees... He loves his dad, but he sees the job as the reason why they're constantly in danger. And he doesn't know why his sister's involved now, because his sister's now an NCIS agent herself. And doesn't understand why Vance is continuing to do the job after what it took from them, aka Jackie. And Vance is about to have like this chat with him when all of a sudden he goes down. And you find that he's bleeding. Which starts this whole thing. there are explosives going off, but no one's actually hurt. But there are explosives going off, and the explosives go off at Tom Morrow's grave, Fornell's house, or new house, and the new office of Caitlin Todd's sister, who was also on the show for a few episodes as a psychologist lady. And, you know, it's like, oh my goodness. And then there's like this huge thing over all of NCIS where everybody's getting these alerts that their homes are being messed with, or that there are attacks at their homes, even though their homes are fine, their families are fine. But it's like, you know, everybody's on lockdown, everyone's on high alert. And this is also at the time when they're unveiling like the new Air Force One super plane or whatever. And they're talking with this supposed super genius who's come up with this app that keeps everybody informed at NCIS. Bandico or something? Bandwidth? Whatever. And so they're just like trying to figure out what's going on, because there's so much going on. Well, turns out Vance's poor son has been dating this girl who she seems really sweet, and she is who she says she is. She is this veterinary assistant. She really truly is one, and she is who she says she is. She just also kind of has a secret hatred for NCIS and the government, because apparently she believes that everybody's connected to the Illuminati, which she had been fed information about through this dude. But then again, she doesn't really believe that either. She just sort of fueled it a little bit. She hated NCIS for a whole different reason. And she targeted these people, and even when they arrested her, she's like all calm, cool, and collected, and it's like, okay, she's got something else up her sleeve. She was planning to mess with Air Force One's computer systems, because she was really good at coding, and the code she used is what had been messing with NCIS's apps and stuff all day. And they were like, oh no, we gotta stop Air Force One. They stopped Air Force One. Why does this all go back from episode 1000 to episode 1? Episode 1, Gibbs and Tony, along with Ducky, Kate, and Fornell, and Tom Morrow was the director at the time, stopped a murder conspiracy on Air Force One. And the guy responsible was the girl's daddy. She was 6 when it happened, but she considers herself and her daddy patriots who really knew what was really going on with the government. They were going to blow the whole shebang up. Yeah. But and then they had this really poignant moment with Vance and his son finally having this moment of understanding. And it showed like little clips from past seasons, past episodes with everyone. And it even showed stuff from the other shows, like from Los Angeles and Hawaii and New Orleans and Sydney. And it just beautiful. NCIS, thank you for 1,000 episodes, and hopefully maybe we'll have 1,000 more. And if not, just know you've made quite the impact, and there are still more shows coming. I mean, the Tony and Ziva spinoff, the Gibbs spinoff, or Young Gibbs spinoff. I mean, what more? And not to mention, Sydney is going on. Hawaii is going on. Yes, Los Angeles, New Orleans have stopped for now. But it's just incredible how far this show has come. And, Even though I do subscribe to ACAB, I do love my police procedural shows. It's a problem. It really is. But I love this show. I am proud to have watched it as long as I have. I plan on continuing to watch it. And it was just the way they tied in episode 1 with episode 1000. Or episode 1000 with episode 1 is just... They pay attention. Don't get me wrong, there are some things on the show that are like plot holes, like Shannon Gibbs and Kelly Gibbs dying February 29th on a non-leap year because it was an odd number year. Things like that. And I don't think we ever really figured out Jenny Shepard's issue with Renee Benoit. It was alluded to being because of her father, but we never really learned how closely that was. There are plenty of plot holes that still need to be filled with the show. I mean, that's what fan fiction is for, I'm sure. But there's just so much. There's so much going on in this show. So much going on in this universe. And it's fun to pretend that there really are good guys who are trying to do things for the right reasons in the show. Don't get me wrong, they do things in a very shades of gray kind of thing. And I know it is part of the whole cop propaganda thing, but again, I do feel and connect with a lot of the characters. I especially kind of connect with the characters like Palmer and Ducky. Oh man, I miss Ducky so much. He made me think of my grandpa so much. But and I love Fornell. I don't know. Every time Fornell is on the show, you just know it's gonna be good because he's hilarious. It doesn't matter how serious he's trying to be or how serious what's going on is. Fornell is always TC Spano or Joe Spano. TC Fornell, Joe Spano. My bad. I apologize. He brings this energy, this goofball energy that he just can't be replicated, you know? Anyway. Rita McCullough from Ageless Fighter Studios signing out, and if you haven't seen NCIS, maybe you should give it a go. There's a lot of the episodes I could recommend. I might make a list down below. But sometimes it's best just to start at the beginning. Work your way up. Bye.